Hey mini enthusiasts, how you doing? I hope you're having a great day. Now before we get into this week's video, I've got a bit of a confession to make. So I get asked lots of times how I managed to get it all done so quickly, how I managed to keep the workshop so tidy, and the same especially down at Mark's as well, we get the work done so quickly. Well, I've got to let you into a little bit of a secret. I've got a helper, and let me introduce him. Say hi, corned beef. Hey mini enthusiasts, how you doing? Wow, I bet you didn't expect that. Right, corned beef, if you can get the front end cleaned up, the windscreen cleaned, and I'll finish off this intro. Good looking chap, isn't he? So, yeah, while corned beef's getting on with that, obviously we've had the MOT done, a few little bits I need to sort out, kind of done a bit of a rundown back from the MOT, give it a run it through its paces. So the speedo's not working, I think it's just not plugged in properly into the back of the speedo head. So I need to pull the dash forward and make sure it's clipped in properly. The temperature and fuel gauge are reading incorrectly. I think that might be the gauge itself because it had a new fuel tank sender. And the fact that they're both not reading correctly indicates there might be a problem with the supply voltage to those gauges, so I need to look at that. The exhaust is banging, so I need to get it up in the air, just adjust it down. It's up a little bit too high, so there is a bit of adjustment on the rear section where I can lower it down a little bit. And what else was there? I think that might have been it, but yeah, just little niggles, which considering the car's not run for 14 years and has been completely rebuilt is not too bad at all, to be honest. Right, so the first job to begin with was the exhaust knock-in. I think it's just sitting up too high. So there's not really any adjustment down that end, but what I think I've done, the hangers round about there, which go on the subframe, both sides, I think I might, where I've just been moving the subframe round, I've bent them up very slightly. So I've just bent them back down again. That moves the exhaust down by about ½ inch, and I'll have to take it for a drive and see whether that stops the knock-in. But it's also just a good point just to do a quick sense check under here now instead of run, make sure there's no leaks, leaking brake hoses, fuel pipes or anything, but it all looks good. Next job, which I forgot to mention, was the reverse lights are not working. Right, so this is a bit of a job to get to under here. Good news is there's not a drip of oil or anything from that engine, so I'm really pleased with that. Obviously it had lots of new gaskets down the bottom. So the reverse light, so here's the wiring for the reverse lights. It's very simple to test, so I've just pulled these wires off, connected them together, that completes the circuit, and the reverse lights come on, so everything forward of the switch is working okay, but the switch doesn't seem to be working. Now it might just be badly adjusted. If I wipe away the grease here, I don't know whether you can see it, up inside there, there is a little plunger. When you put it into reverse, that engages with a metal part on the rod here that pushes that switch in, closes the circuit and makes the lights come on. So we'll just put it in reverse now and see whether it's closing that circuit. Right, so that's in reverse now. Hopefully you can see that up there. The plunger is pushed in pretty well. You can adjust that switch in and out. What I've just done as well is stuck a screwdriver up there, made sure that plunger's pushed in all the way, and the reverse lights still don't come on, so that means the switch is faulty. I don't have one at the moment, so I'll have to stick it back together till I can get a switch. Right, so I need to order a new reverse light switch. I can do that anytime, to be honest, although it's a bit of a pain to get to, obviously being right underneath in the middle of the car. The next job is the fuel and temperature gauges. So the temperature gauge doesn't read cold, so the engine's stone cold at the moment and it shows it's just above the blue, but when it's running it sits pretty much bang on halfway, so I'm not too worried about that. The fuel gauge however isn't reading full, although it is at the moment, and I'll show you why, because I've done a little bit of a test on that. So I fueled it up, it took £26 worth of £26 of V-power at 135 a litre, which is about 4¼ gallons. So what's the tank? It's around about 7 gallons. I need to check now. So it doesn't sound like it should be full, but there would already been a gallon in there, so that makes it around 5 1/4 gallons. There's a bit at the bottom of the top of the tank that you can't fill up, but normally, yeah, about 26 quid's worth of fuel, especially V-Power, is enough to fill up my other MPI minis. And yeah, about 4.5 gallons is all you get into them. So what I've done at the moment, just to make sure, it's had a new sender unit in it, so I thought maybe the gauge is faulty, but the gauge is reading full, and I've done that by basically disconnecting the wires off the gauge here and just connecting them together, bridging them. Or you can earth out this one, take it to earth, and that should make the gauge read full. If the gauge reads full, then the actual gauge inside the car is okay, and you would think it's the sender unit in the tank. So I'm not quite sure. I'm going to connect it back up. I'm going to go back to the fuel station, just going to see how much more fuel goes in it, and then see where we go from there. But I've got a feeling that gauge, that sender's either stuck, there's no reason why it should be, it's stuck, or there's something not right with it, which is a bit of a pain. Right, so this next bit is pretty annoying actually. So obviously being an MPI tank and like an SPI, it's got the flap in there, so you have to lever that out the way. And I was having a look inside, one to see if the fuel tank's full, which it is, and then two to see if I could see the fuel tank sender. And I'm using a borescope, and as you can see, there's the fuel tank sender. It's floating on the top of the fuel, so it hasn't got snagged or anything anywhere. It's really annoying because that means the fuel tank sender is sending the wrong amount of resistance to the gauge, which is frustrating because it should be right. I can't remember where I got it from now, but I thought maybe the fuel float had got stuck, but it hadn't. It's sitting there nicely on top of the fuel where it should be. Right, next job is a speedo, and a bit of a subscriber request as well. I could probably just get my hands up behind the stereo and make sure the speedo's clipped back in, but I've been asked a few times to show how the dash comes out on an MPI Mini, so I'll show that briefly. And there is supposedly a sticker on the back of the glove box which shows the build information for a Mini MPI, so I'll be interested to take the dash out and see that. So the first few things we've got to do, I won't show these because we're doing it because it's a pain to get the camera in here. So there's heater vents out, obviously they just unscrew either side. You need to take the radio out. You can get some radio pins, or if you don't have them, cut up old wire coat hanger or a couple of 3mm drill bits, just put them in and you can leave it to the side. That gets the clips out of the way. And we've got to take off this steering shroud, which is a few screws through the bottom here, 2 up the bottom and 1 through the back there, I think. In fact, no, it's not. We're on an MPI Mini, aren't we? So there's 2 up through there, and there's another screw up through there. So radio out, heater vents out, steering column shroud off. Let me get that done and I'll be right back. There we go. It's very simple to do. Probably took about 3 minutes that. So heater vent, steering column shroud, heater vent, radio out. Now the next bit is a little bit trickier. I say tricky, it's not really, it's just know where the nuts are. So there is a nut behind the radio there. And bear with me, the next ones are very difficult to get to. This side is not too bad, is up underneath there, but this side, because you've got the fuse box in the way, it's up underneath there, but it's quite difficult to get to. I'll try and get a video of it. So hopefully you can see this is the left hand side of the dash, the near side, and it's this nut here. So there's a heater vent, and you look underneath and it's this nut here which you need to undo. There's one on the opposite side as well, but as you can imagine, with a fuse box in the way, it's a lot more difficult to get to. In fact, it is behind the fuse box. I'll try and show you. So sorry about the glaring sun, but it's not just the fuse box, it's the wiring you have to contend with. So you've got the bonnet release there, got the fuse box wiring, SRS wiring as well. Right back up there, same position as the other side, there is a 10mm nut which you need to undo. Can't really see it, it's difficult to see. You almost have to do it by feel. And basically there you go, it is as simple as that. It takes as long to describe it as it does to do it. I would recommend putting a microfiber cloth or something over the sharp bits here. The only other thing you might find is obviously just go through the heater vents, lift up those brackets so they're off. And you might find when you want to pull it forward and pull it out, the speedo cable is holding it a bit, so you might need to go through the radio hole and squeeze the outer white part of the speedo cable plastic clip together, and that should release the cable. But obviously mine has come off the back, that's why it's not reading, so I just need to clip it back on. But it really is that simple. Let's see if there is a sticker on the back of that glove box now. Right, we'll have had a look, and certainly on my Mini there isn't a sticker there, but that's nothing to say it hasn't just dried out and fallen off in the past. But apparently there's a build sticker on the back which tells you the spec of the car. Yeah, and that's access to the back of the dash. We could take it all out now, but all I need to do is just make sure I get the speedo cable into the speedo head properly this time. Right then, let's just give it a run around the block then and see if that speedo's now working. Right, take two. Right, that seems better. So the speedo, it wasn't disconnected from the gearbox end, but the inner part of the cable wasn't in the drive. So what I had to basically do was jack up one wheel, put it in gear, run the engine. You have to be very careful doing that, and then just push the inner of the speedo in gently, and you could feel it engage with the drive at the bottom, and then connect it up to the top, and we've got a working speedo now, which is cool. Exhaust rattle, that seems to be sorted okay now, so very good, and it's driving beautifully. Apart from these potholes, which are quite annoying. So one thing I'm quite surprised about, these have a, I think it's a 2.7 to 1 diff, which is quite a long diff, and I've driven sports pack minis and they seem really sluggish at sort of 70 miles an hour, but this feels much better. I suppose it's because of 12-inch wheels. So we're doing pretty much, let's say, bang on 70, and it's probably 3,100 RPM, 3,050, which is actually quite nice. Yeah, those 13-inch wheels must make a bit of difference.